welcome to you wherever it is you're joining us from around the world. This is Enterprise Morning on Enterprise Television. I am Henry Igwebike. In the beat, we'll be going to our newspaper headlines to see what we have for you this morning, and right after that will be our main conversation also for today. But we'll get everything all sorted out for you. Please do well to visit our website at www.enterprisetvnews.com. Like, comment, and follow us on all our social media platforms at Enterprise TV 7. With me today in the studios to do justice to our newspaper reviews, he is Cyril Abaku. He is a public affairs analyst and also journalist. Welcome.
Thank you.
To Enterprise Morning today.
Glad to be here.
All right. So quickly, let's start off our newspaper reviews today with the Vanguard. And the big story here says fare hike, travelers, commuters groan as fuel scarcity bites harder. And on the bottom strip of the same newspaper, we have terrorism financing. Court chides federal government over a shoddy prosecution of Tukur Mamu. And on the top strip of the same newspaper, we have DSTV Go TV rates hike. Tribunal stops multi-choice. And also $10 billion required annually for 10 years to fix the power sector, and that's coming from the federal government. And also on the bottom strip of the same newspaper, we have that is on sports, that is NFF appoints Finidi as coach of Super Eagles. Mr. Cyril, let's talk about this issue of terrorism and financing. And it's saying here the court is chiding the federal government over shoddy prosecution of Tukur Mamu. And for those who might not know this entrepreneur, he is a media owner, I guess. The Desert Herald newspaper, yes, the publisher. So can you bring us up to speed on who this man is, how he got into this in the first place, and why he is being prosecuted by the federal government?
Begin from the latest event of yesterday.
Yes.
What we understand is that I think the lawyer had even been in court around.
Yes, he actually entered his name in the court list.
In the court list.
Yeah, court list.
And
sorry.
I think he had been cited within the premises. But suddenly when the case was called, he wasn't found. They stood it down. And I think around 10 again, they called the case. Still, he wasn't found. So this is a very important matter. Terrorism is not a light issue. As I speak with you today, part of Nigeria has been overridden by terrorists. Only last week or upper week, 10 Nigerian governors were in Washington to go and learn or to go and be tutored on how to provide security for their states. Because as far as security was concerned, they had collapsed. Governors of Katsina, Benue, Plateau, Kebbi, I think basically the Northwest and the North Central
yeah.
Governors were Kaduna, they were all there, And you are wondering, now the people whom the federal government believes are at the center of the whole problem have been taken to court. And the government lawyer is not there to prosecute the case. Henry, something we have to understand here is very basic. Some time ago, the federal government came out and said that they had identified terror financiers. They didn't give names, but they started describing them. There's a woman among them. She does this, and maybe she fries akara and sells cocoyam or something. There's a man among them. He does it. You are not in government to name and shame. Because we're not a Garri Sellers Association at Creek Road Market in Port Harcourt. That's not who we are. We're not to show the boss conductors. Government has power to arrest and prosecute. Then the only person whose name they gave was that of Tukur Mamu. Because of course he was already in detention. And so they gave his name only for Sheikh Gumi, his mentor, to come out and say the federal government had no right to name anybody as a terror financier. Until we had that back and forth at the time. This was some weeks ago. Now, this man has been brought to court. In fact, what myself does that they were threatening sanctions. And I said, your work is not to be issuing sanctions or to threaten, not even issue to threaten. You're not a big boss. You are government. You come down with the law. Because terrorism is not like a misdemeanor. That's as good as treason. Now, what have they done? Even the man they took to court, their lawyer disappeared. Now, the question is, did anybody order David Caswell, the lawyer of the federal government, to disappear? Just to just walk away? Or
but Tukur Mamu is still incarcerated.
No, but it doesn't make.
Don't you think that this could be a way of knowing the sympathy that would draw, if possibly the case is concluded in his favor? So the federal government is finding another way of.
No, but who cares? You are the one that arrested him and took him to court. Then prove your case. Let me say this. Let me say this. If counsel to Mamu now says it appears the federal government is not interested in prosecuting this case, please strike it out.
Strike it out.
What will happen? It will be struck out. For what? For want of diligent prosecution. That's what they will call it. So clearly we're not in the best place. I honestly don't understand why the federal. Then okay, so as I was saying earlier, if the lawyer Caswell, who went to court to prosecute the case, all right, for some reason disappeared, was he summoned to leave court and come back to the office? Who gave that order, and at whose approval was that order given? Or did this his discretion to say there are other pressing issues and he needed to leave to go and attend to them? And because of what is more pressing than to prosecute a terror case? Okay, but we need to ask questions. Why was the lawyer absent at court?
So where does this leave this case now?
Who knows? The judge has issued a warning. If this continues, all that simply will do is that these people don't have any evidence. They only came to waste the time of court, and the matter can be struck out.
And he's free.
As I speak to you, yesterday, initially, Mamu had been in DSS custody. He was only allowed to see his own medical, his own physicians, but they didn't allow him to. They didn't allow him to be granted bail on that condition that he was sick. But now, with the prayer with the absence of the government lawyer and with the prayers of Mamu's lawyers, the matter he has been transferred to Kuja, I think, to consular facility, which means he will leave DSS detention. He said that the matter is shifting. Not that I prefer him to be in DSS detention. I really don't care where he is. He should be where the law says he can be. But just to let you know that if this continues, tomorrow the matter can be struck out entirely.
All right. So let's take a look at the power sector, which has been one of the major front runners in different traditional media and the new media also. And it's coming from the federal government saying that $10 billion is required annually for the next 10 years if we must fix our power sector.
It's not true. It is not true at all. When we say fix our power sector, what do you mean by fix?
Overhaul.
I don't understand what that means. Are you building new national grids? Is the federal government still envisaging giving power to everybody in Nigeria? I thought the matter has gone to the concurrent list. This is the problem that sometimes you listen to what government officials say and you just can't understand where they're really going. Beginning in 1999, they released 2.7 billion naira back then. But like it was minister of power, was power minister. We don't know where that wound up. Fast forward to by 2007, President Obasanjo had spent $16 billion. We don't know where that wound up. Now, successive governments have spent money, okay? And we've not seen where all of this. I fear that reducing the entire compensation and power to money does not solve the problems. We need to go back to where Europe got it right.
Europe?
Yes.
Must we go as far as Europe? Yes. Ivory Coast here. They are one of those countries in Africa with the best electricity supply.
Even China did the same thing. When the Chinese when the Communist Party won the civil war over the nationalists, the first thing they said they needed power to power the development. That was the first thing that they fixed, power. Power was the first thing that they fixed. All the countries of the world that are prosperous have more power than they could ever need or use. And I have said time and again that if you must fix power in this country, the only time I would say we'll fix power is when we have enough power to feed all Nigerians free of charge. For many reasons. But to even get there, we need a nationalist approach, not a commercial approach.
All right.
Yes.
So quickly, let's move on to our next daily, and this is coming from the Nation newspaper. And interestingly, we have what made the banner headline here: money laundering probe. EFCC swoops on 1,146 bank accounts. And the writer here says, court okays freezing of accounts for unauthorized forex dealing, terror financing. And also on the top strip of the same newspaper, we have it pro EFCC, pro Yahaya Bello protesters at agency headquarters, and how I received $600,000 for Emefiele, ex-CBN director tells court. And also petrol scarcity leaves the Nigerians stranded. And all right, so that's all we have for the Nation newspaper. Now let's talk about Yahaya Bello again. We have pro Yahaya protesters at the agency of the EFCC, saying possibly that their hero, needs no reason to be prosecuted. Now, when we talk about loyalty, and often we say that if we have good leaders, we have good followers. If we have bad leaders, we have bad followers. Is this as a result of that?
Well, yes, of course. I think it's in a measure, it demonstrates that wisdom, that saying. Nigeria has been very fortunate with leadership. That's a plain fact. In fact, that was arguably what informed Chinua Achebe's argument in his book, The Trouble with Nigeria. What did he say? It opened very iconically. He said the problem with Nigeria is simply or squarely a failure of leadership. And that is true. The failure of every home is a failure of leadership. The failure of any organization is a failure of leadership. And that's why, in the case of Yahaya Bello and the EFCC now, I bet you do not be surprised if tomorrow at a public function you see Mr. Bello and Olukoyede shaking hands,
having a handshake
and hugging. That's a possibility. And in Nigeria, such things are possible. With the same of mind, those things can happen, but in Nigeria, such things are very possible. You can't rule it out. How did they pick yesterday for such a protest, and the two parties were there together at the same time? Even EFC now has protesters. For those who understand the economics of protest in Nigeria, and who understand the economy of protest, even the EFC now has protesters.
Yes, pro EFCC.
No. That's not a good one at all. It's not, because they will tell you that the average protesting crowd is higher. The EFC now also has protesters. That's a surprise. What I would say is that Nigeria is not really interested in prosecuting Yahaya Bello.
Really?
No, we are not interested in it. Otherwise, how can a simple single human being evade EFCC? And I want to believe evaded the police intelligence, because if there is a security net, all of them should tell each person what they are seeing.
Exactly.
DSS intelligence, including all the defense intelligence, army intelligence, naval intelligence, air force intelligence, NSCDC, all those people, nobody knows where Yahaya Bello is. And we should believe that. Either there are internal saboteurs among them, or they are not really interested in arresting this man. And I blame the presidency for this. Because just like it is in the case of the protest that I was saying, that somebody should have fired somebody or suspended somebody, you cannot have this kind of situation in which Yahaya Bello can be arrested. The president didn't give the NSA marching orders. He didn't give police IG marching orders. He didn't give EFC marching orders. He didn't say nothing. Nobody gave anybody marching orders. That EFC came to effect an arrest and another security and blocked them. Nobody has even arrested anybody to prosecute the person. Say, why didn't you allow? You know what I'm talking about? I can give you a free clue. 100% of us on job. By now, they would have withdrawn all the policemen attached to Usman Odudan and told him and say, if you don't surrender this man, you see worse. Obasanjo wouldn't care.
So does the Constitution permit that?
Well, that's why I'm just telling you what the extent to which if our president could have gone. You know, even in Lagos, he will tell their allocations. Okay, it was after he left office that those things were paid back to Lagos. Yeah, of course, he will tell all those things. I don't know if there's any law that says that determines how many policemen must guard a governor. But I know that because we run a central police system, the Nigeria police, I'm not advocating it. If the Nigeria police has withdrawn all the policemen attached to Usman Ododo, DSSDG withdraw all the DSSmen attached to Usman Ododo, NSCDC does the same thing. By now, believe me, by now, you won't have had the EFC lawyer, Kemi Pereiro, go to court to say that they will use the military to arrest him. Something should not be hard.
So which means... All right, so
it means that clearly they are hopeless and helpless.
At this point.
Something should not be hard.
All right, so finally, let's move on to our last daily for today. This is coming from the Daily Independent. And the big story there, says corruption allegation. Keyamo demarketing Nigeria's aviation sector. And that's coming from experts. And the writer there says aircraft leasing insurance premiums may rise over action. And the subwriter there says ministers are trying to justify interference into NCAA jurisdiction. And on the top strip of the same newspaper, we have FG must invest 10 billion annually for improved electricity, and that's coming from the minister. And also we have 4 killed, others injured as herdsmen attack Enugu community. Mr. Abaku, let's talk about this issue of the herdsmen, attacking an Enugu community. Often than not, we've seen situations where if there are attacks like this, the first point of call are always the herdsmen. Even if sometimes it might not be so, because, we have had people with the skin in the game in Benue, for example, saying most of the killings we see or we hear about in Benue necessarily aren't the herdsmen. It could be, intertribal issue between the Tiv and the Domas, the Igala, and supremacy and who wanting to be the governor. They've insinuated that the Tiv have had it all the while and not giving it to the Doma or the Igala. And when we hear such attacks and reprisal attacks, it's actually not the herdsmen. Now, do you think this could be the same thing in Enugu community?
Henry, you forgive me, but I can't avoid going to Benue because so the Igala are in Kogi, right? But in Benue you have Tiv, Jukun, Igede, and Tiv, Jukun, Igede, Idoma. Yeah. So at least I know of those for Benue State. It is not true. Propaganda has its value for those who believe in it. But the killings in in Benue State are perpetrated by people who want to take farmers' lands, herdsmen who want to take farmers' lands and take over the Benue. But let's come to what happened
in the community.
I think it was in Nimbo. The governor Peter Mba was there to commiserate.
Yes, the image have it here. He's there to commiserate with the people
with the 4 widows. Now you remember the other time in Nimbo, Pabi, I think it's the same Nimbo. In the early days of President Buhari, they went there, they slaughtered people. I think even took videos of the slaughter. They cut off their little fingers or 4 fingers. Like all people they killed, they cut off a finger from their hands and went away with it. And we were wondering, what is this for? I think that there is a need for better conscientization. While we wait for state police, local community security networks should be not just established, but be strengthened. Must be strengthened in a way that they are able to ward off. They can be the first line of defense for such attacks. If you look at Ondo State now, you notice the level of kidnapping and insecurity has significantly come down.
Yeah, dropped a bit.
But in neighboring Ekiti, it's not so. Which means we need to now go and interrogate Ekiti whether they are also investing as much as Ondo has invested in protecting their land.
Or could he be a politicking?
Who knows? But what about, you see, this is exactly where the matter really rests. I like the question you raised, whether it's politicking. whatever the problem is should be secondary. But preventing the killings is the primary thing. We can speak the English later. We can look at semantics later. But primarily, we must be able to defend our land, our waters, our territories, our farms, our ponds, and everything that belongs to us. Because it's our culture, is who we are. In the end, all that we have may just be the land. And if foreigners come and willfully and wantonly kill our people, take what belongs to them, like in Plateau where they've gone, kill people, taking over the lands, rename the lands in Fulani language, you know, and all that. I mean, who likes that? How is that for being a Nigerian? So we need to work briskly. We need to work smartly. We must make sure that communities have the capacity and ability to ward off such attacks. Is the least we could do. If we, let's begin from that, then all else will be all else.
All right, in 60 seconds, just before we coast home, and the EFCC is freezing about 1,146 accounts of individuals, and most of those they are freezing. The accounts belong to fintech companies, OPay, MoneyPoint, PalmPay. At a time when, in 2024, other countries are encouraging fintech companies, don't you think this is going to affect our tech industry in Nigeria?
Well, I'm glad again you've taken the question from a very pivotal perspective. Let me be very clear. Just like we have it in petroleum shortage that you said, whether there's no internal conflict, and I said there's no conflict. It is a gang up of the rich against the poor, right? Again, it's a gang up of the traditional banking institution as it is. Well, system, not institution, but system against the blistering startups, against promising charismatic startups. If you recall very well, during the cash crunch of Emefiele, the infamous cash crunch that people were dying on the roads, it was the fintechs that came to the rescue. Banks couldn't do basic transfers. I don't know if you recall.
Very true.
You couldn't. Yes, it was MoneyPoint, PalmPay, OPay, Kuda. That saved the day. How does the government now turn around to say? I even saw one. Well, I don't know if it's even true, but I think what I read somewhere before we came on air was that the CBN has said that these fintechs must not allow
should not take new inflows. Yeah.
What does that mean? How can the government be the one killing? Look, let me say this. America is what it is today. Not because some people said it must be like this, but because they know better than to kill innovation. It doesn't matter. Big businesses go down if they won't innovate. The ones coming up, if they are better, they will take over. And nobody became a champion, a giant overnight. The thing is life is a race of ideas. The new ones can come up and overtake the older ones. It's possible. Yeah,
because I can remember, Jim Ovia made an interview when he said in 1990 he started Zenith Bank with 20 million naira.
Exactly.
So today Zenith Bank
so you imagine if we say because of First Bank and Union Bank, those are don't let us leave those banks and say Zenith Bank should die. Imagine, look at Zenith, look at UBA, look at GTB, look at Access. Look at these four banks. See what they are doing for Nigeria.
New generation banks.
You see, these companies are the face of any country as economic ambassadors. Okay? These banks are even overseas. Some even in America. So why won't you allow, in every generation, a new wave must arise. For us to think that the older system is always better, for me, it just sort of doesn't cut it at all. So we must arise to the challenge. Let's question the CBN and ask them, what if truly it is true? If really it is true, why would you say that they should not enroll new? Why can't the older banks also create their own fintechs and let them be,
compete?
Who knows whether with greater financial muscle they can come in and defeat, the MTN Global company. One came and said they couldn't do per second billing. The other people came and did it. And today where are we? So
better off.
It's about ideas and innovation. If the race of ideas has ended, then come on. The country has also ended.
Very true. All right, so that's just about the time we have for our newspaper reviews today. I'd love to say thank you to Cyril Abaku for being part of our show and making our time to analyze our newspapers. And when we return, travelers, commuters grown as fuel scarcity bites harder across the country. That in a bit when we come back. Please don't go anywhere.